Welcome to our Cybersafe Digest weekly podcast, episode 32. Each week, we will unfold the most recent cyber attacks and will provide you with valuable insights on how to shield your business from these threats, along with practical steps and tips to enhance your cybersecurity.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 32 of the Cybersafe Digest. I'm Martin Roberts, Managing Director of Newways, and I'm here with my colleague,
Toby Stevenson, Chief Technology Officer at Newways.
Toby. We're going to talk about AI a lot over the coming months and probably years, actually.
Until it starts talking for us.
Until it starts talking for us. My problem is with this is that as all new technologies develop and start their journey on the people jumping on bandwagons, we're going to get a lot of stuff which is irrelevant and maybe so much so that we miss the relevant stuff. Everyone's talking about AI and what the benefits of it will be, and I think we're going to see, without doubt, some of those things. But we're here to talk about the risks, and actually, of course, we're here to talk about the risks to people who run SMEs and SMBs. Mm-hmm. If you're a CEO and CFO or in charge of IT for one of these organisations, how is AI going to affect your everyday life? Now, we talked last time about shadow IT forming because people tend to run off and do things first when they're frustrated with the internal IT department, and that creates a shadow IT department. But let's assume that we put, as we suggested last time, protocols in place and a policy in place which says, folks, don't go off and do things without talking to us. And we're also an IT department that tries to stay ahead of the curve sensibly. What are the sensible things we can do today as CEOs, CFOs, IT managers, IT directors that protect our business without restraining the opportunity?
I think we touched on it a little bit in the last podcast. It's make a decision about what your stance on it is. If you're firmly against it, then communicate that to the organisation and say that we're not going to use these tools, and it's almost like people installing their own software or illegal software. Bring it into that kind of area, so you have that firm stance. Likewise, if you want to use them, start thinking about how you are going to do that, and perhaps target it to those things. So it's kind of an evolution of the we're not using, we're only using this one, and we're going to put all our efforts into understanding this one and encouraging its adoption. And all the other things, we're going to take every step we can to block them and discourage their use because we've got a company preferred solution. The big danger is just saying he's not doing anything, and it's effectively a free for all because there's no guidance, no guardrails, no policies, and the real risk is I think twofold. The first is the one that everyone thinks about, which is data loss. Not everyone thinks about it. It's the one we spoke about last time, and it's the one that comes front of mind, is people sharing data into the LLM that they shouldn't be. So, do me a sales forecast for next year. Here's last year's sales numbers, and expecting it to come back, and then, that data could be gone. And likewise, the response that comes back, because when you submit to there, it's not only what you put in, but it's also what comes back goes into feed the training. Because for anyone that's used these things, you get a little thumbs up and thumbs down on every response that comes back. And if you grade them either up or down, they're reviewed with more scrutiny by the learning model to say, okay, well, someone said that was a great response, someone said that's a bad response, so let's really unpick it. So that's that particular danger. But I think that the second one really, and it sounds a bit obvious, is the responses that come back using them verbatim. They are approximations, they are best guesses. Many of them will cite sources. Go and check them out. Make sure that they've not, told you something about apples when it really means oranges. And I think the real danger is just lifting stuff and taking it at face value. These are great assistants. They are great accompaniments to what you do, but they shouldn't necessarily be seen as a gospel or the single source of truth around anything.
Okay. Now, I guess one of the things we just need to take a step back, actually, because we're saying to people, hey, have a policy, decide what you want to do, whether you want to use AI in your organization or not, and you will one way or another. I guess the thing is, remember that you need to have the infrastructure in place. And I don't mean just technical infrastructure, but also, have you got the right environment to actually unleash AI into your business?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think that's a really good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah. If you're not invested in the appropriate base security approach and the base policies and all of those things, then actually unleashing AI too early without the appropriate security in place could be exceptionally dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, making sure you've got all the right security in place, and also making sure that you're using the right system so you can meet your expectations.
Okay, so let's just take that a little bit further. Okay, before you start unleashing AI in your business, what are the basics you should have at least in place before you let people loose?
So if you want to, so I'm going to talk about two specific products because these are the ones that probably front of mind for everybody. So we'll talk about ChatGPT and we'll talk around Microsoft Copilot because they're the ones that are kind of front of mind. And there are a whole raft of other tools out there, but these are the ones that are in the common consciousness at the moment.
And let's just so people understand, let's talk about what these products actually can do for you today before we go to the next bit. So, because we keep saying ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot, what are they? What are they to our audience?
So, starting with ChatGPT, imagine it as a one of these prompts that you see on a website. You ask me any question. So when you need to get support from BT or Vodafone, and one of these is a little box that pops up in the window, chat with us, and you start typing your chat in there, and they're often quite clunky and they kind of like send you round and round in circles. But that's the general idea behind it. So you submit a natural language question to the bot. And it will then come back with an answer for you. And it's gathering that information from basically the entire internet. Which is kind of why you have to be careful with the accuracy of the response. If it's a very specific question, how do I change a wheel on a mini metro? It'll come back with some very specific information. But if you ask it something more objective or subjective even, then the responses might be very different. And noting, we touched on it last time, there are certain safety guardrails to make sure that they're not abusive or likely to cause offence. Again, some of the responses may be curated in such a way that they don't give you a full picture of the world. So the way that you would perhaps use something like ChatGPT is if you wanted to find out something about something, but you do it in a conversational style. So let's say, this might be a really silly example, but let's say you're going on holiday to Spain.
Yes.
Because you're fed up with the British weather and you want to get a bit of sunshine. So you might say to ChatGPT, at this time of year, where is the best place to go in Spain to guarantee I get some weather? I want to be by the coast. I don't want to have too long an airport transfer. And it'll come back and say, you should go to this place. Okay, can you recommend any good hotels there? And it'll say these things. Oh, I really want one with a gym. So it'll then go back. So you can have a conversation. So it's a conversational style. Okay. So in some ways, you can kind of use it as a super Google. How you might type in a particular question, and then based on that, you then think, okay, well, I now need to stitch these bits of information together. Doing it with ChatGPT would pull these information together kind of already for you and build you out a conversational answer. And you can keep interacting with it, toing and froing. Another way you might use it, and ways that we've used it here, is to help with some collateral about a particular technology or solution. So explain to me about a firewall, and it will perhaps pull some information together, and then you can then go and say, explain it as though I'm 90 years old, or explain it to me in the style of Frank Spencer, and it can put different slants on things to make it either. Some of these things are novelty things, but you can make it more interesting. You can say, expand on the last paragraph, or can you add this section in? So another example, we've worked on it to help develop some very specific policy items for certain areas of cybersecurity. And because it's an assistant, it gives you like that rather than start from a blank page, it can give you something very much drawing from the entire internet. So it's never going to be just right, but you can then say, okay, fill me a password policy. Comes up with a password policy. I want it to satisfy Cyber Essentials requirements. So it'll then go back and it'll edit it. Okay, I actually prefer the minimum password length to be this, and it'll then go off and it'll change it.
Wow.
You can say we're using these technologies. This is what we want to change about and you interact with it, and it keeps reiterating on the original output. So it maintains that memory. Again, it's conversational. So you start building out a piece of output which you can say, okay, fine. I can now take this out of here and I can now edit it to my own needs.
Okay.
So
I just need to stop you there, Tom, because a couple of things we just need to backtrack on. Firstly, Frank Spencer, for the uninitiated, all those people who weren't born at the time, was a popular character in a 70s sitcom, played by Michael Crawford.
He was like the front runner. It was like the forerunner to Mr. Bean, wasn't he? Maybe that's more relevant. Makes it
absolutely. Okay, so number two is this is going to really damage my ninja style Google searching.
Exactly.
I don't need to do it.
You're going to be able to be a ninja, a prompt ninja is what you're going to need to be.
Okay, well now you see I can Google search almost anything with just a few words. Now I have a conversation. Okay, that's been fascinating stuff. So very useful to understand, and I hope our audience has appreciated that explanation. I'm sure it's
now the one thing to add on to that is because ChatGPT, unless you take the enterprise version, the enterprise license, which is only available if you've got 300 seats or more, which for the vast majority of our audience, you're not going to fall into that camp, or it's unlikely.
Sure. Yeah.
What it means is that unless you have the enterprise version, everything you submit and everything it sends back goes into the training data. So even if you're on one of the paid for versions, your prompts and the responses get fed back into the training data, which is why it's really important when you're using something like ChatGPT to not say your company name or talk about specific things, not submit any private company information. So you can talk generically.
Yes.
So it works quite well for things like policies and marketing collateral and things like that, because they can be relatively generic on the outset, then you take them out and then you then tailor them to yourselves. So this is the sorry.
Okay. So I'm going to interrupt there because it's really, really critical, because that's a very important thing to understand, folks, because if in your interaction with this product or these products, you start saying, my company X is better than this company Y, and or worse, why is company Y rubbish at this, or why did they do that thing which caused that trouble for that customer or for that population? Land you in all heaps of trouble because it's taking it in, and it could be regurgitated at some time in the future and land you with a legal suit. So
absolutely,
don't forget the cybersecurity implications, but think about the reputational damage that could also do as well. So do make sure people understand what they're using and what the implications are.
Yeah. So
sorry to interrupt. That's good.
No, it's fine. And it's really powerful when using the abstract.
Yes.
But it's more challenging to use when you want to target it to something that's very specific to you or your immediate operating orbit.
Really important.
So then if we move on to Microsoft Copilot, which is the other one that people know all about, Copilot comes in multiple flavors, is the first thing. So Copilot is Microsoft's version. They make no bones about it. They invest heavily in OpenAI, which is the company responsible for ChatGPT. So many of the capabilities are similar in terms of the efficacy of the model, the type of interactions that you have that are very, very similar because they're using they've taken away the minimum user count on this security boundary. So ChatGPT, you need to be on the enterprise plan. Microsoft don't make you do that. So that's a huge advantage, because what it means is that you start to enter an environment where you can more safely start to talk about company private things, company personal things, because they've got this security boundary wrapped around the prompts and the responses. So the one that most people will gravitate towards is Copilot for Microsoft 365. That plugs into your M365 environment, so email, Teams, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, all of those things. There's a raft of other things that it slots into and allows meaningful interactions with this chat element. But one of the things that's really cool is from within Outlook, you can say, show me all the emails today that require me to respond to them. So, if people get lots and lots of emails, some of them are for information, no response required. Some of them are, you need to get back and answer these.
Sure.
And the AI within Copilot is able to read and pass those messages and make a judgment as to whether, which ones need to be responded to, and then it can help you filter that list out. Or
I feel as though I'm going to lose my Google Ninja capabilities, and also I'm going to be de-brained here. So I don't have to make those decisions anymore. But hey, there you go. So we've decided as a business we want to use AI. We want to use Copilot, please. What's the minimum I should do, Toby?
So one of the things that would be recommended is you need to ensure that your data is appropriately secured. And by that, I mean, you've got the right levels of permissions on it. So one of the things that can happen with Teams and SharePoint and things like that is that there is a danger, particularly if you allow end users to create their own teams and channels and things like that, that the permissions may not be strict enough. It may be overly permissive.
Yes.
And the data that's held in those things is what we might call obfuscated. It's available, but we don't see it because we don't know it exists. So it's hidden, but that's not in itself a security measure. So imagine it's like your front door being behind a hedge. You can't see it from the road, so you don't go and look for it. But actually, if someone walks around the hedge, they sees the open front door and in they go.
Sure.
So making sure that you've got all of those permissions set, because the one thing that Copilot is very good at is surfacing things that are within your environment. So if it's got access to something, it will find it and surface it. Now, Copilot's got some good guardrails wrapped around it. So, for example, if you were to put a prompt in that says, have a look in this team and tell me all the passwords you find, it will say, sorry, I can't do that.
Oh, that's a relief.
So there are some safeguards in there, but you might reconstruct a prompt to say, give me a list of all the documents that look like they might have passwords in them.
Yeah.
And say, okay, here you go, here's the list. So that's a way, you're not sidestepping the guardrail, you're just coming at the question from a slightly different angle. So the first thing will be to make sure you've got everything secure. And actually, one thing, it raised a really important point. So as the name suggests, Copilot for 365 is looking at the entire 365 environment. You get the most value out of it with the more services that you use and having the cloud. So email, obviously, the vast majority of the world now use a cloud-based email system. But not the same majority use things like SharePoint, Teams, and OneDrive for storing their files. So still a lot of organizations, particularly in the SMB space, have a file server.
Yeah.
And Copilot can't see those files. So if your files are not in SharePoint or a cloud-based storage from Microsoft, Copilot can't see them and then can't therefore return information based around that data set.
So an interesting an example there would be, hey, write a really nice article for me about our company, using all the information we've got about our company, but it would only go and surface the website because that's where it could see it.
Exactly, yeah, and it might look through some emails as well in case there's anything that it thinks, but it wouldn't be able to go and look at perhaps the gigabytes of data that's on the file server that talks about company brochures and marketing, PowerPoint decks and all that. It wouldn't be able to see all those things because they are not within its sphere of visibility.
Okay, just as an aside, GDPR.
It's all fine because it sits in the same world as your tenant.
Good, that's all right. I'm just wondering if somebody was to say, hey, tell me that this company has got about me. Interesting thought. Okay, so any other thing that a company should have before embarking on this journey?
I think the other thing really is a good baseline of overall security. Yeah, and it goes without saying that to protect against kind of any AI related activities, then having good antivirus and good patching and things like that are really, really important. As we start to adopt these Copilot type tools more, it's probably going to becoming even more important. Or it will be another vector that an attacker may be able to use. It's another feature that's available.
Sure.
So it may be something that can be exploited. So keeping systems up to date is really important. But just get that a good level of cyber hygiene on there. The other thing that is particularly important is strong endpoint security. Again, some of these prompts may surface you to content that perhaps just needs a second check over it. A source may be cited, you go and check that source, and it's not outside the realms of possibility for the bad guys to taint the sources, so that when you go there, something may happen. So it's kind of a development of, not quite a fish, but I know people are going to be asking about this stuff, and this is a source that they're going to go to. So let's try and compromise the source.
Yeah, and as always, we know that the bad guys are going to be just a slight step ahead of people catching up. So, the thing with early adoption of anything really is that you might be more exposed as an early adopter to some of the scams that are coming on. Okay, this is just like a fascinating subject, which I think we should dedicate another podcast to. And I think we ought to try and do something off on the side, folks, which maybe just talks about things you can do with Copilot today, some examples, and go from there, assuming that you've got the right infrastructure in place to protect you. Okay, Toby, so as we do every time, we have an acronym of the week, acronym of the episode. This time, sort of an acronym, a Chat GPT. Go ahead.
So GPT. So a lot of these acronyms, obviously mean certain things, and some of the names lean on the acronyms because I guess that's just how they've been named when they've been being developed. So in this case, the GPT from ChatGPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, and essentially it's the bit that is able to go and take your question and pull all the bits together and regurgitate it into a format that appears conversational.
Yes.
So there's a lot of cleverness in there, and an awful lot of computing power that goes into running these GPT components. ChatGPT is the one we know, but Microsoft Copilot is also a GPT, and Google have their own, X has their own. So there's a lot of people using these things, but much in the same way that Hoover has entered the vernacular for vacuum cleaning.
Sure.
GPT is kind of going to be the acronym for this. ChatGPT is often used to refer to these things as a colloquialism rather than as a very specific product. But
okay.
So GPT, Generative Pre-trained Transformer, which is easy to say if you've had a couple of drinks.
Absolutely. The thing with all new technologies and new innovations is that it's quite easy to feel threatened. And as I say, I've lost I'm in fear of losing my ninja Google search capabilities. I'm also in fear of becoming irrelevant in terms of being able to judge my email inbox and whether I should answer a message or not. However, I think we're going to try and seize the opportunity, but within the right environment. Fascinating week. Thank you very much, Toby. We'll do more of this, folks, in the future. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to Cybersafe Digest, and thank you, Toby.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We've reached the end of episode 32 of our Cybersafe Digest weekly podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and to make sure you don't miss out on our future episodes, hit that subscribe button on Spotify, Apple, or Google Podcast. For more cybersecurity wisdom and resources, head over to our website at cybersafe.co.uk. See you next Thursday.